G shape, G chord, pentatonic, and major scale position number 1, or G shape, G chord scale position. Get ready, because it's time to rock and or roll. Here we are in our worksheet, noting that we have the top string on top, that being the low E string, the string closest to the ceiling. Then we have the high E string, the one closest to the floor on the bottom, the 0 representing the open fret, meaning that if indicated, we would not be putting our finger down on it, but rather ringing them out as open, as with these 3 items. Then frets 1, 2, 3, and so far being the places where, if indicated, we would be putting our finger down on them. For example, with the orange items on down below, we're looking at the G shape in the open position. This is the common G shape in the open position. Most people will then learn, remembering that you do want to learn it as the G shape, but then keep in your mind that it's in the open position so that you can then move this entire shape up and see that it will still be the G shape in your mind, and not let that throw you off from saying that it is also an A chord, for example, or a B chord, or a C chord, or so on and so forth. Noting that this shape is not one that converts to like your standard bar chord type of shapes. So you might say, hey, look, I'm not going to be able to move this up here because I'll have to lose these open positions, and it becomes a very difficult thing for me to finger on the guitar and be able to finger that. But remember that that's not the only reason. It may not even be the primary reason that you want to be able to move these shapes up. It's still useful to move it up because then you can see as an anchoring point where you are in those 4 or 5 frets that it's going to be on there. You can apply the pentatonic scale over the top of it. You can arpeggiate whatever you're going to be playing in as well. And you can also make chords as long as you're including the keys, because there's only 3 notes, even though you're playing all 6 in the nice open G. Also note that if you have a fingering style, then instead of like a strumming going on or picking going on instead of strumming, then it could still be a useful shape as you do your finger picking, often happening at the high and the low end of the guitar. So in any case, so you still want to be able to move the shape forward, even if it's not one of the major kind of bar shapes that you're going to have. You want to be able to move different things and see how the fretboard is kind of put together from different angles. So it is a G, not because then of the shape, but because of the notes that are in the chord. Let's take a quick look at the notes by going to the right-hand side. We'll just do this again. We're looking at the G. We're taking the number of the notes from G to G, all the notes from G to G. If we were looking at the G scale, which is quite common, then we would have the G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C, whole step to D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp. There's the sharp, half step back to G. So really common progression. You have only one, basically a sharp in there. So that makes it pretty easy, another kind of easy one to keep in your mind without having all those sharps kind of messing you up as you're thinking through it. If we were to number them off, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then the G. And so we're then numbering off the notes in the actual chord, which would be the 3, the 1, 3, 5, G, B, and D. G, B, and D. So if we scroll back on over, we've got a G, we've got a B, we've got a D, we've got a G, we've got a B, we've got another G. So of course, noting that we have only 3 notes that you need to make the entire chord, but there's 6 notes, a nice full open chord with the G in there, giving you more voicing on it within it, so that gives you a fuller sound to it. And that's great if you have someone strumming away at the G, and someone is playing a song in the key of G. You can strum along with that, but then you might want to do other things. Even if you're in the same position, maybe you want to do something else, ringing out another format, another voicing of the chord, such as possibly here. We saw that you can see that as connecting to our A kind of voicing in the G position, but you can see it here. You can come up with another voicing down here. You can arpeggiate over the top of it as well. And then of course you can move this whole shape up. This is to the 12th where we're repeating again at the 12th. Now let's go to the pentatonic. Before we do, remember that if I learned the pentatonic from basically my C major or A minor, then your major your major shape is going to be right here in the middle. That's usually your rock and roll kind of shape that many people learn first, and many people learn it on the 5th fret, and that's basically your G shape. So this shape 1 to many people, or the main shape they kind of learn, is going to be the shape that we're looking at. We're just moving it back over to the open position. So let's take a look at that. So if I unhide this, we're going to check it out. Unhide these items, if it'll let me. Unhide. And then we're going to go over, okay, so now we've got the pentatonic is this whole shape. So this is whole shape would be the pentatonic, which I would call like shape 1. It's basically the most common kind of pentatonic shape that you have. It's also a fairly easy one to know the major and the minor. So in other words, if you're looking at this shape, you can see that the major is going to be on the G. The relative minor then would be the E minor. So it's a nice shape to be able to see those two right on the top fret. And so if you, no matter what shape you're using, you can kind of go to this shape and say, okay, what's the relative minor? And you can say, okay, this is a G shape. There's the G. Pentatonic would be the relative minor, then would be back here. In this case, it would be the E. So now you can basically use this shape to if someone's playing a song in the key of G, then you can try to play the G chord, of course. You can play different voicings of the G chord, and then you can expand, picking out on the pentatonic and or voicing the G chord in different voicings using the notes in the pentatonic. Some of them are going to be repeat notes that are in the scale too. Here's a D, right? Here's another D that you can voice out differently and have the same notes. So you can, but in any case, so you can then add those notes as well and play along with the song. Then of course we can add the notes for the whole scale. So now we're looking at the major scale. We're just adding the other couple notes. So when you're learning this shape, then a lot of people learn this as their first shape. They might learn it up here in the 5th fret, but if you see the shape, you're going to say, all right, there's my shape. I can see now that there's a G chord in there. So you might learn the G shape within it, and then you can apply on top of it your pentatonic shape, adding those notes that you can play along with the song, and then add on top of that the extra couple notes to get to your full scale. And so then if you go on to if we were to wrap this up on our G here, very common thing to be playing in would be G. Then we can label the notes, and if we were to build the song, we would typically be using a G major, and then the second would be an A minor, a B minor, the C major, the D major, and then the E minor, and then the F sharp diminished, usually often dropped off. And you can select from those chords typically in any kind of order you want to build around the song. And as long as you're kind of hovering around the G, you're starting and ending on the G, is the most common way to do that, then you'll basically be in the chord of G, right? And so if the common voicing would be a 1, 4, 5, a G, C, and a D for the major chords. And if someone was playing in the C, G, and D, then of course you can pick along in the G area, either way back over here in the pentatonic or in the actual notes, arpeggiating it, or you can expand, and then you could possibly do it up here in the 12th fret and repeat it there. And you can do that through the whole key of the song and try to pick over, and that's usually a safe thing to do, to be able to follow along even if the chord progresses through the 1, 4, 5, the G, C, D, or you can chase the G, C, D as the song changes, and you could possibly do that. Many people use this shape because this is the first shape people often learn, to then move it up as basically the song is changing and progressing, right? So we can move it up, and here's the scale, or here's the key that we would be in as we move up, and basically chase through the song to either pick along with it or play other things through it. Now again, as you move up, you're probably not going to be playing the same G in there. So you might be saying, I can't finger that G. I can't finger this G unless you're doing some kind of picking style, and you're not going to be picking the open notes in the middle. If you're strumming, it becomes difficult, but you can strum something like this. You could possibly pick out something like this, and then you could pick through it, and so on. So, and also just realize that many people, when they learn this shape, because they're starting off, like if they were to start off on the E, or if you were to play this shape, for example, back here, you're going to probably find many people that learned this shape right here, just as their kind of rock and roll shape that's right in the middle of the neck. It's a great place to start to learn. Then they might see it as an A, an A kind of shape, which it is an A minor, but it's actually the C major shape and then an A minor shape. And that's kind of an important distinction. So you can kind of see that if you see that there's a G, it's really a G kind of shape inside of it. If you were to match it to the caged system, so in the open position, you'd see that G kind of shape in there, which is pointing to this note, which is going to be the root of that shape. Then you can see, okay, yeah, that's a G, that would be a G shape in the open position. That's why it's a C shape here, and that means the relative minor is the A. So this is a really good shape because it gives you those two positions, but a lot of people will get it backwards because they just learn this position and then they just see it as A because they start off on the A and it sounds good in A, but they don't really realize maybe it's a minor in that position. So that's common. So then so that's going to be useful. So next time we'll move this on up and we'll just move that position up to the A position next time. This would be the A major position, and then the relative minor would be the F sharp.